inside my heart I feel it would shine like a crowd dancing. I guess I can live without things that make my life what it is.
Hey, Josh here, and after getting through my rather tense and outburst-like review of Twilight New Moon, this is my review of 2012, the other big blockbuster that appeared right the week before New Moon came out. Now, I went to see this at an early matinee showing, not because I was really thrilled with it, but the person that I was going with really wanted to see it, so you know how that goes. Anyway, 2012 is really fairly easy to summarize. It's basically disaster porn, and there's really little else to it. The story is, frankly, there isn't really much of a story. You'd think it based someone off the Mayan prophecy, but you know, it's really only mentioned once or twice. There's no real allusions to it. They say the calendar ends with the Mayans, but that's the only thing they ever really tell you about regarding the Mayans. Most of all, it's just some geological shit that, again, is vaguely explained, supposedly related to the Mayans, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In short, you're basically watching John Cusack go around with his depressed family for 2.5 hours, trying to survive the end of the world. And that is one thing I do have to give the movie credit for. This is very much an end-of-the-world movie, and it does have some balls in that regard. In other regards, it doesn't. I'll get to that a little later, but to start, I want to say, though the story didn't really go into places I didn't expect, or that I would never have seen coming, I mean, but it did go to some fairly interesting areas, even though the biblical symbolism was laid on a little bit too thick for me. And the characters, oh, not bad. John Cusack did an okay job. There's really not much you can do with this kind of material. He's not given a lot to work with. Little character development whatsoever. I didn't really understand anyone. Sometimes this movie has a weird habit of killing off important characters and not mentioning it later on. And it really kind of strikes me as odd, and at certain points throughout the movie, it will make a character bad, then they're going to be good all of a sudden, right before the end, and I don't understand it. There was no purpose for it, especially because one of the characters, and I won't say who, is good throughout most of the movie, and then turns bad like a third of the way in, only to be redeemed like 15 minutes later. It seems entirely arbitrary and just needed to add drama to the movie. So in that case, I don't think it's really well scripted or well plotted, but let's face it, you are not going to this movie to watch a great story. You are going to this movie to watch shit get blown up. And that is one thing in this regard I can say the movie does succeed in. The effects are fantastic, everything is huge, millions of people die all over the planet, tons of huge landmarks destroyed. Sure, it's absolutely preposterous and makes no sense and based in reality whatsoever, and feels like a video game at times with this progression, but when you see the entirety of Yellowstone Park go up in a kind of a nuclear blast, that's pretty interesting. Not interesting on an intellectual level, but it certainly satiates your eyes and your need for destruction. So, I'm not really sure what to say about this movie. There's not a whole lot to say. I think it's preposterous and stupid as all fuck, but it's not the worst thing I've seen all year. Transformers is much worse than this. And at least knows it's stupid. It doesn't really try to aspire to some great status, which is to its credit, I guess. One thing I do have to mention, there's really random character actors that just appear in the movie, and they're always introduced in reveal-like fashions, where it's like they spin around after having their names said. Like Stephen McHattie, that people may recognize as Night Owl 1 from the recent Watchmen movie, or Pontypool, among many other things. Seriously, that dude is in every fucking movie ever. As well as Neelix from Star Trek Voyager. It's just in this movie. No real reason, but he is. Anyway, I don't want to ramble on too much about that. I'll just kind of conclude by saying that there's basically, if you're going to see this for the disasters and the effects, and how they survive the end of the world, it is fairly interesting to watch in that respect. There's just about every disaster you can possibly think of outside of a mudslide, which is kind of disappointing in retrospect. I would have liked a good mudslide. But I can't complain because they gave me just about everything else. Overall, I can't say I'd probably ever see it again, but for a 2.5-hour movie with really big plots or gaps in consistency and character logic, I wasn't actually too bored. I wouldn't mind it. I didn't mind it the first time, that is. So, to catch a matinee for it if you're interested, you probably won't be disappointed.